opened her eyes to darkness and pain. Her head was ringing. Her body felt like someone had dropped a mountain on it. She tried to move, but her legs screamed in protest. Something was very wrong. Slowly the memories came back. The transport ship, the alarm, the captain shouting orders, then fire and falling and nothing. She was lying on the cold metal floor of what used to be the medical bay. The ceiling above her was torn open. Through the hole, she could see a pale sky filled with the massive curve of a gas giant. Its rings stretched across the heavens like a frozen river. Beautiful, terrifying. Forced herself to sit up. The pain in her left leg made her cry out. She looked down and saw the problem immediately. Her left leg was bent at a wrong angle below the knee. Broken. Her right leg had a deep cut running from her thigh to her ankle. Blood had soaked through her uniform and pooled on the floor beneath her. She was a medic. She knew what these injuries meant. Without treatment, she would die. Maybe in hours, maybe in days, but she would die. But was not ready to die. She dragged herself across the floor, using her arms to pull her body forward. Every movement sent waves of agony through her legs. She bit down on her sleeve to keep from screaming. The emergency supply cabinet was only 10 meters away. It might as well have been 10 kilometers. It took her 20 minutes to reach it. By the time she got there, she was soaking in sweat despite the freezing air. Her breath came out in white clouds. The temperature inside the ship was dropping fast. Pulled open the cabinet and found what she needed. Painkillers, splints, bandages. She injected herself with the painkiller first. The relief was immediate and wonderful. The world became softer, more distant. She worked on her legs with steady hands. She had done this 100 times for other people. Now she did it for herself. She cleaned the wound on her right leg and filled it with. The foam expanded and hardened, sealing the cut and stopping the bleeding. Then she straightened her left leg, gasping at the pain even through the drugs, and wrapped it in splints. When she was done, she lay on her back and stared at the ceiling. She was alive, for now. The next few hours were spent exploring what remained of the ship, used a broken pipe as a crutch and hobbled through the wreckage. The news was not good. The cockpit was completely destroyed. The captain and pilot were dead. She found 4 more bodies in the cargo bay. The other 6 crew members were missing, probably thrown from the ship during the crash. She was alone. The communication room was damaged but not destroyed. The distress beacon was still working. A small green light blinked steadily, sending her location out into the void. Someone would come. Someone had to come. Checked the emergency database. She was on 7, an ice moon in an uninhabited system. The nearest colony was 8 days away at standard speed. If the beacon reached them, if they sent a ship immediately, rescue could arrive in 10 to 12 days. 10 to 12 days, alone, injured on an ice moon. She gathered all the supplies she could find. Food rations for 2 weeks. Water recycler still functional. Heating unit damaged but working at half power. It would have to be enough. That night sealed herself in the most protected part of the ship, a small storage room with no windows and only one door. She blocked the door with heavy crates and sat with her back against the wall, a plasma cutter in her hand. It was not a weapon, but it could burn through metal. It could burn through flesh too, if needed. She did not expect to sleep, but exhaustion is stronger than fear. Her eyes grew heavy. Her head dropped forward. She dreamed of home, of green mountains and warm rain, of her mother's voice calling her name. She woke suddenly in the middle of the night. Something had changed. The air felt different. Watched. Grabbed her plasma cutter and turned it on. The blue flame cast dancing shadows on the walls. She listened. At first there was nothing. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Something was walking around the wreckage outside. She crawled to a small crack in the wall and looked out. The ice moon was bright, lit by the glow of the gas giant above. And there, moving between the broken pieces of the ship, she saw them. Creatures, huge creatures. They walked on 6 legs and stood taller than any wolf or bear she had ever seen. Their fur was thick and white, perfect for the frozen world. But what made her breath stop were the markings on their bodies. Blue lines that glowed softly in the darkness, like veins of light running beneath their skin. There were 5 of them. They moved slowly, sniffing the air, examining the wreckage. One of them stopped near her hiding place. It raised its massive head and looked directly at the crack where she was watching. Did not move, she did not breathe. The creature stared for a long moment. Then it turned and walked away, joining the others. They circled the ship twice more before disappearing into the frozen wasteland. Sat back against the wall, her heart beating so hard she could hear it. Predators. She was injured and alone, and there were predators outside. She did not sleep again that night. She sat in the darkness, clutching her plasma cutter, waiting for the dawn that would not make her any safer. She did not know that the creatures were watching her too. She did not know that they had already decided she was something special. She did not know that they had seen her dream. The pack had been hunting when the sky caught fire. Was the first to see it. He stopped on the ridge and raised his head, watching the burning light fall from the heavens. It screamed across the sky and crashed into the ice fields near the old glacier. The ground shook. A column of smoke rose into the pale air. The other hunters gathered around him. His mate pressed close to his side. Their 3 cubs, Bora, Ren, and pushed forward to see what had happened. "What is it?" Bora asked. She was the eldest of the cubs, almost grown, with curious eyes and a bold heart. "Something fell from the sky," said. "We will investigate." They traveled through the night, crossing the frozen plains under the light of the great circle above. By dawn, they reached the crash site. What they found was beyond anything they had ever seen. A structure of hard material, twisted and broken. It was not stone. It was not ice. It was something else entirely, something that gleamed in the pale light like frozen water but felt warm to the touch. Strange smells filled the air. Burning, metal, blood. Growled low in her throat. "This is wrong, we should leave." But was too old and too wise to run from the unknown. The unknown was dangerous, yes, but it was also important. The pack that understood new things survived. The pack that fled from everything died in ignorance. "We watch," he said, "we learn." They circled the wreckage from a distance. Used his nose, reading the story written in scents. There had been many creatures here. Most were dead. Their bodies were cold, their blood frozen. But one scent was different. One scent was warm, alive. "Something survived," he said. Bora was the first to spot her. The cub had climbed a ridge of broken ice to get a better view. She looked down into the wreckage and saw movement. A creature, small and strange, was dragging itself across the ground. It had only 4 limbs. Its skin was not covered in fur but in some kind of loose outer layer. Its face was flat, with 2 forward-facing eyes. "Father," Bora called softly, "come see." The pack gathered on the ridge and watched. The creature moved slowly, painfully. Its legs were damaged. It left a trail of red behind it. Blood. The creature was bleeding. Ren, the middle cub, sniffed the air. "It is dying. Should we wait for it to die and then eat it?" "No," said firmly. "We do not know what it is. We do not know if it is safe to eat. We watch." So they watched. They watched the creature reach a box and pull things from inside. They watched it put strange paste on its wounds. They watched it wrap its broken leg in hard sticks. They watched it work with steady, careful movements despite its obvious pain. Tilted her head. "It knows healing, like our medicine keepers." "Yes," agreed. This was not the behavior of a simple animal. Simple animals did not heal themselves with tools. Simple animals did not fight death with such determination. For 3 days the pack observed the sky-fallen creature. They learned its patterns. It slept during the dark hours. It moved during the light hours. It made sounds with its mouth, even when alone. Strange sounds like it was speaking to itself. On the 3rd night, Bora crept closer than the others. She wanted to see the creature better. She moved silently across the ice, her white fur making her invisible against the snow. She reached the edge of the broken structure and peered inside through a crack. The creature was lying on the floor. Its eyes were closed. Its chest rose and fell slowly. It was sleeping. But something else was happening. Bora could see it clearly. The creature's eyes were moving behind its closed lids. Its body twitched. Small sounds escaped its mouth. Sounds that seemed like fear, like memory, like something far away. Bora felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. The creature was dreaming. She ran back to the pack and told her father what she had seen, listened carefully. Then he walked to the crash site himself and watched the creature sleep. He saw the moving eyes. He heard the small sounds. He understood. Among the dreaming was sacred. Dreams were how the ancestors spoke to the living. Dreams were how the spirits of the dead passed on their wisdom. Only beings with souls could dream. Only beings with souls could walk in the world between worlds while their bodies slept. This creature, this strange thing that fell from the sky, had a soul. Returned to the pack with his decision made. "We do not hunt this creature," he announced. "We do not harm it. It is a spirit-touched wanderer far from its home. The ancestors sent it to us for a reason. We will protect it until we understand why." Accepted her mate's judgment. Ren and nodded, though they did not fully understand. But Bora stared at the wreckage with new eyes. The creature was not just alive. It was a person alone, hurt and afraid. Bora knew what that felt like. 2 winters ago, she had been separated from the pack during a storm. She had spent 3 days alone in the wilderness, certain she would die. The fear still lived inside her. She looked at the sky-fallen creature and made a silent promise. Whatever happened, she would not let it face the cold alone. She did not know yet how important that promise would become. Woke on the 5th morning to find footprints in the frost. She stared at them through the crack in the wall. Massive prints, bigger than dinner plates, pressed deep into the ice. They circled the wreckage in a wide pattern. Whatever had made them had walked around her shelter many times during the night. The creatures had come back. They had been close, so close. Her hands trembled as she checked her supplies. Food was holding. Water was fine. But the heating unit was failing faster than she expected. The temperature inside the ship had dropped again overnight. She could see her breath forming thick clouds in the air. She spent the morning trying to repair the heater. Her engineering knowledge was basic, but she understood enough to see the problem. The power cell was cracked. Energy was leaking out faster than it could be stored. She patched what she could with tape and sealant, but it was temporary at best. By afternoon, the sky had changed. The pale blue was turning. Clouds gathered on the horizon, thick and dark and heavy with snow. Had seen storms before, but something about these clouds felt different, dangerous. She began preparing. She sealed every gap she could find with emergency foam. She piled blankets and insulation in the smallest room. She checked the heating unit one more time. It was working, but weakly. The temperature inside was barely above freezing. It would have to be enough. The storm hit at sunset. Had never experienced anything like it. The wind screamed across the ice fields like a living thing. Snow fell so thick she could not see her hand in front of her face. The wreckage groaned and shook under the assault. She heard pieces of metal tearing away and flying into the darkness. She huddled in her small room, wrapped in every blanket she could find. The cold was incredible. It cut through the walls, through the blankets, through her clothes. It reached into her bones and wrapped around her heart. The heating unit made a sad, dying sound. Then it stopped working completely. Knew the math. She had studied survival medicine. Without heat in these temperatures, she had perhaps 6 hours before hypothermia became fatal. Her body would fight at first, shivering to generate warmth. Then the shivering would stop. Then she would become confused. Then she would sleep. And then she would never wake up. She pulled the blankets and curled into the smallest ball she could make. She tried to stay calm. Panic burned energy. Panic made the cold work faster. She breathed slowly, deliberately, trying to keep her heart rate steady. But the cold was stronger than her will. Within an hour, she was shaking so hard her teeth rattled. Her fingers had turned white. Her lips felt thick and numb. The world was becoming distant, fuzzy, like a dream she could not quite hold on to. She thought about her mother. She thought about the green mountains of home. She thought about the rain, warm and gentle, falling on her face. She wanted to go home. She wanted to be warm. She closed her eyes. Far away through the howling wind, Bora paced inside the family den. The storm was the worst she had ever seen. The pack huddled together for warmth, their bodies pressed close, their fur keeping out the cold. But Bora could not stop thinking about the sky creature. Its little shelter was not strong. Its body had no fur. How could it survive a storm like this? How could anything survive without a pack to keep it warm? She looked at her father, was resting, his eyes closed. Her mother was grooming fur. Ren was already asleep. Nobody was watching her. Bora made her decision. She slipped away from the group and pushed through the den entrance into the screaming wind. The cold hit her like a wall of knives. Even with her thick fur, she felt it trying to reach her skin. She pushed forward anyway. The journey to the crash site took 3 times longer than normal. The wind fought her every step. Snow blinded her. Ice formed on her whiskers. But she kept moving, following the scent she had memorized, the strange smell of metal and blood and something else, something uniquely the sky creature's own. She found the shelter half buried in snow. Part of the wall had collapsed. Wind was howling through the gap. Bora squeezed through the opening and followed her nose deeper inside. She found the creature in the smallest room, curled in a ball, covered in thin sheets. It was shaking badly. Its skin had turned a strange color, pale and blue. Its breathing was slow and weak. Bora understood death. She had seen it many times. This creature was dying. She did not think, she acted. Bora pushed through the thin sheets and pressed her body against the creature. It made a weak sound of fear and tried to push her away. Its hands pressed against her chest, but there was no strength in them. "No," Bora rumbled softly. "No, stay." She did not know if the creature could understand her. It did not matter. She wrapped herself around the small body, covering it with warmth, blocking the wind with her bulk. The creature struggled for a moment longer. Then it stopped. Its shaking hands grabbed onto her fur and held tight. A sound came from behind her. Bora turned her head and saw Ren and pushing through the gap in the wall. They had followed her. Of course they had. They always followed her. "Bora, what are you doing?" Ren asked. "Helping," Bora said. "Come, add your warmth." The younger cubs hesitated only a moment. Then they came forward and pressed against the creature from the other side. 3 warm bodies surrounding one cold one. 3 hearts beating steady while one weak heart struggled to keep time. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, slowly stopped shaking. The terrible cold began to retreat. Warmth soaked into her bones, soft and living warmth that smelled like snow and fur and something wild and good. She did not understand what was happening. Her mind was too foggy, too broken by cold to think clearly. But some deep part of her knew that she was being held. She was being protected. She was not alone. She pressed her face into the warm fur and cried. The tears froze on her cheeks almost instantly, but she did not care. She was alive. Somehow, impossibly, she was alive. The cubs held her through the night, through the worst of the storm, through the darkest hours. They kept her heart beating. They kept her breathing. They made sure she would see the morning. Woke surrounded by warmth and fur, and the smell of wild things. For a moment she did not understand. Her mind was slow and confused. She remembered the cold. She remembered dying, but she was not dead. She was warm. How was she warm? Then she felt the bodies pressed against her. Massive bodies. breathing bodies. She opened her eyes and saw white fur filling her vision. Her heart jumped with fear. She tried to move, but she was trapped, pinned between huge creatures that could crush her without effort. One of them stirred, a head lifted. Yellow eyes looked down at her, curious and alert. It was one of the creatures she had seen circling the wreckage. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Its head was bigger than her entire torso. Its teeth were long and sharp. Stopped breathing. The creature made a sound. Not a growl, something softer, almost gentle. A low rumble that vibrated through its chest and into her body. It sounded almost like a question. Forced herself to stay still. She was a medic. She had studied animal behavior. Sudden movements meant threat. Calm meant safety. She had to be calm. "Hello," she whispered. Her voice was rough and weak. "Please do not eat me." The creature tilted its head. The other two woke up, lifting their heads to look at her. 3 pairs of yellow eyes, watching, waiting. Noticed that these creatures were smaller than the ones she had first seen. Younger, cubs. Slowly, carefully, the largest of the 3 moved back. It gave her space. It kept watching her, but it did not attack. The other 2 followed its lead, pulling away just enough for her to sit up. She looked at them, they looked at her. Minutes passed. Nobody moved. Nobody made any aggressive sounds. The cubs seemed almost as nervous as she was, their ears flat against their heads, their bodies tense but not threatening. Raised her hand slowly. The cubs flinched. She stopped, waited, then moved again. She reached toward the largest cub and let her hand hang in the air, palm up, not touching, just offering. The cub leaned forward and sniffed her hand. Its breath was warm and smelled of meat. Its nose was cold and wet. It sniffed for a long moment, then pulled back and made that soft, rumbling sound again. Smiled despite her fear. "Thank you," she said, "for saving my life." Over the next few days, learned many things. She learned that the cubs came to visit her every day, sometimes for hours at a time. She learned that the largest cub, the one she started calling Bora in her mind, was the bravest and most curious. Bora stayed closest to her, watching everything she did with intelligent eyes. She learned that Bora understood more than any animal should. When struggled to stand on her damaged legs, Bora moved to her side and lowered her body, offering herself as support. When tried to walk and fell, Bora caught her, pressing her shoulder under his arm to keep her upright. She learned that she could not survive alone anymore. Her legs were too damaged. The cold was too dangerous. Without the cubs, without Bora, she could not even move from one side of the shelter to the other. The adult creatures came on the 4th day after the storm. 2 of them, larger and more careful than the cubs, recognized them immediately as parents. They moved with authority. The cubs stepped back when they approached. The male was huge, across one shoulder, with eyes that held the weight of many winters. The female was smaller but moved with a dangerous grace. They entered the shelter and stopped, looking at with expressions she could not read. Sat very still and tried to look harmless, which was not difficult, considering she could barely move. The male approached her slowly. He sniffed her face, her hands, her injured legs. He made a series of sounds to the female. She responded. They seemed to be discussing something. Finally, the male stepped back and made a gesture with his head that understood instinctively. Acceptance. She was being welcomed. From that day forward, the pack began to care for her as one of their own. They brought her food, fresh kills that she could not eat raw. She used her plasma cutter to cook the meat, and the watched with fascination as fire appeared from her hands. Bora tried to touch the flame once and pulled back with a yelp. After that, they respected the tool. Began recording everything. Her personal device had survived the crash and she spoke into it every night describing what she saw. The creatures had language, they had social structure, they had family bonds. They were not animals. They were people. She started learning their sounds. She listened carefully to how they spoke to each other. The male was called something like. The female was. The cubs were Bora, Ren, and she practiced saying the names, and though her human mouth could not quite make the sounds correctly, they seemed to understand her attempts. Bora especially loved when tried to speak. The cub would sit beside her, ears forward, eyes bright, listening to every sound she made. Sometimes Bora would correct her, repeating a word slowly until got it closer to right. One evening showed Bora something special. She activated the holographic display on her device and projected an image of Earth. Blue oceans, green forests, cities glowing with light. Bora stared at the image with wonder. She reached out her nose to touch it, and when her nose passed through the light, she made a sound of pure amazement. She looked at, then back at the image, then at again. "My home," said softly. She pointed at herself, then at the image. "Where I come from." Bora looked at the projection for a long time. Then she looked out the gap in the wall, up at the stars visible in the night sky. She made a questioning sound. "Yes," said, her eyes filling with tears. "From up there, very far away." Bora turned back to her and pressed her forehead against his shoulder. The gesture was unmistakable. Comfort, understanding, connection. Wrapped her arms around Bora's neck and held on tight. She had crashed on an alien world, alone and broken. But she had found something incredible. She had found family in the most unexpected place. Her legs might never heal properly. She might never walk alone again. But as long as she had Bora beside her, she knew she would never have to try. On the 11th day, the sky opened again. Heard it before she saw it, a distant roar growing louder coming from above. She looked up through the broken ceiling and saw a light cutting across the clouds. A ship, a human ship. Her heart pounded. Rescue, they had come for her. She grabbed her communicator and pressed the emergency button. "This is medical officer of the I am alive. I repeat, I am alive. Please respond." Static crackled, then a voice clear and beautiful. "Survivor, this is captain of the rescue vessel Nara. We have your location. Hold tight. We will be landing in 30 minutes. Laughed and cried at the same time. 11 days. 11 days of pain and fear and cold and wonder, and now it was ending. But as the joy faded, another feeling took its place. Worry, fear of a different kind. She looked at Bora, who was lying beside her as always. The cub was watching the sky with her ears flat and her body tense. She had heard the ship too. She had seen the light, and she was afraid. Put her hand on Bora's head. "It is okay," she said softly. "They are my people. They will not hurt you." But even as she said the words, she was not sure they were true. Humans had a long history with alien species. Not all of that history was kind. What would happen when her people saw the? Would they see friends or threats? Would they offer peace or bring guns? The next 30 minutes were the longest of life. The rescue shuttle landed in a flat area near the crash site. Its engines melted the ice beneath it, creating a pool of steaming water. The ramp lowered and soldiers emerged, weapons ready, eyes scanning for danger. Took a deep breath, then she looked at Bora. "Help me," she said. "I need to walk." Bora understood. She always understood. The cub moved to side and lowered her body, letting lean against her shoulder. Together, slowly, painfully, they made their way out of the wreckage and into the open. The soldiers saw them coming. They stopped, they stared. Knew what they were seeing. A human woman, thin and battered, limping forward with one hand gripping the fur of a massive alien predator. A creature with 6 legs and glowing marks and teeth that could tear through steel. A creature that could kill every person there without breaking a sweat. Weapons rose, fingers found triggers. "Stand down," shouted. Her voice was stronger than she expected. "Stand down immediately." A man stepped forward from the group, tall, serious, with the markings of a captain on his uniform. He raised his hand, signaling his soldiers to wait, but he did not tell them to lower their weapons. "Medical officer," he called. "Yes," she said, "and this is Bora. She saved my life. They all did." She gestured behind her where Ren and had emerged from the ice ridges. They stood watching, ready to fight or flee. Looked at the creatures, then back at, "What are they?" "People," said firmly. "They are people, intelligent, sapient. They have language and families and culture. They found me after the crash. They watched over me. When I was dying in the cold, the cubs came and kept me warm with their bodies. Without them, I would be dead." The soldiers shifted nervously. One of them, young and scared, raised his weapon a little higher. His finger was shaking on the trigger. Bora saw it. The cub moved before could stop her. She stepped forward, placing her body between and the gun. A low growl rumbled in her throat. "No!" shouted. She grabbed Bora's fur and pulled herself in front of the cub, facing the soldier. "She is a child. Do you understand? She is protecting me because that is what family does. If you shoot her, you will have to shoot me first." Silence, nobody moved. Then spoke, "Lower your weapons." The soldiers hesitated. "I said lower your weapons," repeated, his voice hard as iron. "That is an order." The guns came down. Felt the tension drain from her body. She nearly collapsed, but Bora was there, solid and warm, holding her up. She leaned into the cub's fur and tried to breathe. Approached slowly. He stopped a few meters away and looked at Bora. The cub stared back at him, yellow eyes unblinking. Neither of them showed fear. "She really saved you?" asked quietly. "Yes," said. "She watched me dream. Her people believe that dreaming means having a soul. They decided I was worth protecting because I have a soul just like them." Was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I have seen many things in my years," he said, "but I have never seen anything like this." He turned to his soldiers. "We are not here as conquerors. We are here as guests. Treat these beings with respect. Anyone who raises a weapon without direct threat will answer to me personally." The soldiers nodded. Some of them still looked nervous, but the worst of the fear was fading. Curiosity was taking its place. Stepped forward. The old pack leader approached without fear, holding his head high. The two males stood facing each other, different species, different worlds, but somehow understanding that this moment was important. Made a sound, a greeting, an offer of peace. Did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect. Watched with tears streaming down her face. This was first contact, real first contact, not invasion or conquest, but meeting, understanding, the beginning of something new. Later on the ship, wrote her report. She told the truth about everything. She recommended that 7 be protected. She asked that they be recognized as sapient beings under interstellar law. She requested permission to return as a liaison, to continue learning their language, to build a bridge between two peoples. Her requests were granted. 3 years later, stood at the opening of the first joint research station on 7. Her legs still ached in the cold. She still walked with a limp, but she did not walk alone. Bora stood beside her, fully grown now, a pack leader in her own right. The cub who had crawled into the wreckage to save a dying stranger was now an elder of her people, respected and wise. They watched together as humans and entered the station side by side. Scientists from 2 worlds, ready to learn from each other. Children from both species playing in the snow, already forming friendships that their parents could barely imagine. Put her hand on Bora's shoulder. Bora pressed her head against the side. No words were needed. They had been through too much together. They had faced death and cold and fear and misunderstanding. They had proven that connection was possible between beings who had nothing in common except the capacity to care. Looked up at the sky, at the vast gas giant hanging above them, at the stars beyond. There were so many worlds out there, so many species waiting to be discovered. And now she knew the secret. The universe was not empty. It was full of people everywhere in forms no one expected. All you had to do was watch them dream. And then make sure they never had to face the cold alone.